Hello Donaldson, we're on chapter 12 and it's called Thursday and School, and it is Thursday today, so it's quite lucky.
And
this
it's
chapter's
school.
called Thursday and we're at school. Tomorrow's is called Friday, so it's great that we have chapters that are named after the actual days that we're on. The next day was Thursday, and before we set out for the walk to my school that morning, I went around behind the caravan and picked 2 apples from our tree. One for my father, and one for me. It is a most marvellous thing to be able to go out and help yourself to your own apples whenever you feel like it. You can do this only in the autumn, of course, when the fruit is ripe, but all the same, how many families are so lucky? Not 1 in 1,000, I would guess. Our apples were called Cox's Orange Pippins, and I liked the sound of the name almost as much as I liked the apples. At 8 o'clock, we started walking down the road towards my school in the pale autumn sunshine, munching our apples as we strode along. Clink went my father's iron foot each time he put it down on the hard ground. Clink, clink, clink. Have you brought money to buy the raisins? I asked. He put a hand in his trouser pocket and made the coins jingle. Will Cooper's be open so early? Yes, he said. They open at 8:30. I really loved those morning walks to school with my father. We talked practically the whole time. Mostly it was he who talked and I who listened, and just about everything he said was fascinating. He was a true countryman. The fields, the streams, the woods, and all the creatures who lived in these places were a part of his life. Although he was a mechanic by trade, and a very fine one, I believe he could have become a great naturalist if only he had good schooling. Long ago he had taught me the names of all the trees and all the wild flowers, and the different grasses that grow in the fields. All the birds, too, I could name, not only by sighting them, but by listening to their calls and their songs. In springtime, we would hunt for birds' nests along the way, and when we found one, he would lift me up onto his shoulder so I could peer into it and see the eggs. But I was never allowed to touch them. My father told me a nest with eggs in it was one of the most beautiful things in the world. I thought so too. The nest of a song thrush, for instance, lined inside with dry mud as smooth as polished wood, and with 5 eggs of the purest blue speckled with black dots. And the skylark, whose nest we once found right in the middle of a field in a grassy clump on the ground. It was hardly a nest at all, just a little hollow place in the grass, and in it were 6 small eggs, deep brown and white. Why does the skylark make its nest on the ground where the cows can trample it? I asked. Nobody knows why, my father said, but they always do it. Nightingales nest on the ground too. So do pheasants and partridges and grouse. On one of our walks, a weasel flashed out of the hedge in front of us, and in the next few minutes I learnt a lot of things about that marvellous little creature. The bit I liked best was when my father said, the weasel is the bravest of all animals. The mother will fight to the death to defend her children. She will never run away, not even from a fox, which is 100 times bigger than her. She will stay beside her nest and fight the fox until she is killed. Another time when I said, just listen to that grasshopper, Dad, he said, no, that's not a grasshopper, my love, it's a cricket. And did you know that crickets have their ears in their legs? It's not true. It's absolutely true. And grasshoppers have theirs in their sides of their tummies. They are lucky to be able to hear it at all, because nearly all the vast hordes of insects on this earth are deaf as well as dumb and live in a silent world. On this Thursday, on this particular walk to school, there was an old frog croaking in the stream behind the hedge as we went by. Can you hear him, Danny? Yes, I said. That is a bullfrog calling to his wife. He does it by blowing out his dewlap and letting it go with a burp. What's a dewlap? I asked. It's the loose skin on his throat. He can blow it up just like a large balloon. What happens when his wife hears him? Oh, she goes hopping over to him. She's very happy to have been invited. But I'll tell you something very funny about the old bullfrog. He often becomes so pleased with the sound of his own voice that his wife has to nudge him several times before he'll stop his burping and turn round to hug her. That made me laugh. Don't laugh too loud, he said, twinkling at me with his eyes. We men are not so very different from the bullfrog. We parted at the school gates and my father went off to buy the raisins. Other children were streaming in through the gates and heading up the path to the front door of the school. I joined them but kept silent. I was the keeper of a deep secret, and a careless word from me could blow the lid off the greatest poaching expedition the world would ever see. Ours was just a small village school, a squat, ugly, red brick building with no upstairs rooms at all. Above the front door was a big grey block of stone cemented into the brickwork, and on the stone it said, "This school was erected in 1902 to commemorate the coronation of His Royal Highness King Edward VII." I must have read that thing 1,000 times. Every time I went in that door, it hit me in the eye. I suppose that's what it's there for. But it's pretty boring to read the same old words over and over again, and I often thought how nice it would be if they put something different up there every day, something really interesting. My father would have done it for them beautifully. He could have written it with a bit of chalk on the smooth grey stone, and each morning it would have been something new. He would have said things like, "Did you know that the little yellow clover butterfly often carries his wife around on his back?" Another time he might have said, "The guppy has funny habits. When he falls in love with another guppy, he bites her on the bottom." And another time, "Did you know that the death's head moth can squeak?" And then again, "Birds have almost no sense of smell, but they have good eyesight and they love red colours. The flowers they like are red and yellow, but never blue." And perhaps another time he would get out his chalk and write, "Some bees have tongues which they can unroll until they're nearly twice as long as the bee itself." Wow, he could have written a lot of facts, couldn't he? There were about 60 boys and girls in our school, and their ages went from 5 to 11. We had 4 classrooms and 4 teachers. Miss Birdseye taught the kindergarten, which is nursery, the 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and she was a really nice person. She used to keep a bag of aniseed balls in the drawer of her desk, and anyone who did good work would be given one to suck right there and then during the lesson. The trick with aniseed balls is never to bite them. They're not very nice, I don't like. If you keep rolling them around your mouth, they will dissolve slowly. Ooh, he thinks it's a fabulous taste, I don't. My father told me that dogs go crazy about it. When there aren't any foxes around, the huntsman will drag a bag of aniseed for miles and miles over the countryside, and the foxhounds will follow the scent because they love it so. This is known as a drag hunt. I'm going to stop there and have the second part in a moment when we come back in from playtime. So there'll be 2 parts for this chapter.